Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Albers, and welcome here to Dingo and The Coach. And excited to bring our episode that we got, Steven. It brought back a lot of memories, not only of my childhood on Clemson Circle and all the neighborhood kids that we used to play with, but also brings back some of the things that my dad played with us, too. So I want to bring that up. I know you got some, too.
A lot of childhood games in the backyard, and this is where all the competitiveness came from you and I think.
I totally agree. And I know there's a lot out there that we're going to forget, that people are going to say, you don't want to miss this episode. So come right back. Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Albers again. Welcome back here with Dingo and The Coach. I am Dingo Dan Albers, and that is the coach, Steve Ellis. And Steve, I'll tell you what, this was a lot of fun to brainstorm and to go back and to check out all the favorite sports games that we played back in the day in our neighborhood. And, man, it brought back a lot of freaking memories for me going through this.
Well, you were on the other side of Beachmont.
The great side, the good side, where everybody was.
And I almost called Dave Limestall just to make sure that I had all the games covered that we played, because it was so much fun. It's just a total night and day difference between the kids that grow up today. Kids today will have no idea on this list. Nope,
they won't have no clue. But I'm going to start off. I'm going to read you my list.
Okay.
I'll have you comment on some of them, and then we're going to go through your list. So that's kind of how we're going to do it here today.
Let's do it.
So my first one that was just, I'm sure everybody did it. I know you did, is wiffle ball. Wiffle ball with the yellow bat and the 3-hole wiffle ball.
Yeah. No, I mean, we had a neighbor that actually turned his backyard into a wiffle ball field.
Oh, man, that's the best.
To the point where, the pitcher's mound area was all nothing but dirt, home plate. Yep. I mean, it was just like something out of a movie. We couldn't wait. We would play, from morning until Mr. Softy came around with ice cream.
Absolutely.
And then we would go to dinner, we'd come back and we'd play again.
And if you think about it, my aunt worked at Kmart, and so I know that you walked in and there was always those bats and balls everywhere in the store. So that was so basically we can go through our yard to go to Kmart. So that's one of the things that we did. If we broke a bat or we did something we needed, we all got on our bikes, went to Kmart, and then came back and played ball.
Remember they had a fat bat too.
They did it was a red one.
And
that was like So that was always the big one with me, was the wiffle ball. But here's one that we played too. Was more. I felt like we played a lot more. Was tennis ball. So it was basically baseball with a tennis ball. Yeah. And we played that so much. Yeah. I mean, that was crazy. And I got to tell you that, Steve, that kind of how you were saying you had the baseball field.
Yeah.
In the backyard of the McManuses, what we did is our moms got a little upset with us. Yeah, we cut it down really low, for the baseline. But we stole flour from our parents. Everybody went to their houses and got flour so we can line the field.
Now again, that's out of a movie.
It is.
Yeah. So as we got a little older, we were playing tennis ball, and we had to move our field to the cul-de-sac. Yeah, and it was just, again, I can't say it enough, right out of a movie. If you hit a fly ball up against a house and it hit the window, thank goodness it didn't break, but if it made a loud sound, everybody scattered.
Yeah, just because they get in trouble.
Because nobody wanted to get in trouble.
I got to bring this up real quick because I feel really bad. The Millards who lived, if you remember our backyard, it was a yellow house, and that was a home run if you hit their siding. Okay. If you hit it over and there was a fence there, if you hit it on that, it's because a lot of us were right-handed. Yeah. You hit it at there to a certain point of the post, it was a double. And then you had an automatic out. You had all that stuff.
All the rules.
Pitcher's mound. We played a pitcher's mound, all that stuff. But I felt sorry for the Millards because we were hitting their house constantly. Yeah. I mean, they had to have been mad, but they let us do it. And real quick thing on this, we played so much tennis ball that we wanted to play against another team, so we made an all-star team of our Clemson crew and all the group against Laval or one of the streets down there, and their parents and our parents got along so well. They made it a day-night thing, they had so they got in the backyard, had a party, a picnic, and all that, and they announced and they put lights out for us, so we played at nighttime. Yeah, it was really cool.
That's extremely cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. So that was awesome. One, and then this one was kill the man.
Oh yeah,
that's where whoever had the football, you just went and killed him. You just basically went after him and tried to tackle him. And
I was showing my wife this list, and she's like, "What's kill kill the man.
Yeah.
I had to explain that to her, and it was just like the greatest thing.
Oh,
I mean, you could juke and jive and try to miss getting tackled and getting killed.
You're getting 5 guys coming at you at one time.
Piling on. Yeah.
And I can't remember the rules. I mean, like, you had to get to a certain point, and then it would, like, try to score a touchdown, or you just ran around.
No, you had boundaries that you couldn't run outside of it.
Yeah.
But you had to, like, see how long you could last. So eventually you got tired.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did the guy that got killed all the time? Yeah. How did he win?
No, well, he was just there the longest, and so then the game would start over. Okay. You throw the ball in the air, somebody would catch it and take off, and then you just try to catch them and tackle them.
Yeah, that was always a fun one to do, especially when it was muddy. That was always fun. Yeah, in the mud. But then what about horse?
Yeah.
And around the world.
Yeah.
That was a basketball one that we did. And you remember our hoop that we had. We had the telephone pole in the circle, and with just enough room there that you could do anything you wanted there.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously, it's so funny. You just get so creative on these games. Yeah. And like if the yards were too wet or too muddy, then you just go out front and you play basketball.
Well, and so people out there that don't know what this is, horse is you would shoot a shot, I would shoot a shot, then Steve would come right after me, and if he didn't make it, he had H.
Yeah, I had to take nothing. That same shot, and if I didn't make it, then I got H, and then you go on and see who wins. And again, every single one of these games are competitive.
Yeah, they were, and then around the world was kind of the same way. You just went around everywhere trying to make shots, kind of doing the same thing. And then the other thing that we always did a lot too, and I think it was in the seasons, because summer you're playing baseball, you're doing all that stuff, and football was football season. We did the 2-hand touch football. When we did that, Steve, sometimes we had an all-time quarterback. That's all they did was the quarterback.
Designated quarterback. Yep. Yeah, and you had to, you could only blitz after you count to 5,000. 1,001, 1,002, 1,003. Yeah.
And then you rush.
Yeah. And so back then, on the side of our house, the street was like basically in like 10-foot sections. And so each 10-foot section was lined. And so we just kind of eyeballed that, and that would be the first down marker.
Yeah.
If you could get to there. And then one of the trees in our yard was a touchdown. Yeah. And one in the Limestone's yard was a touchdown if you got past that.
Yeah, that was the same way. And then bringing this up again, because we always did stuff with the McManuses or in their yards, between our yard and their yard. Yeah. And we played this game. Mr. McManus was the all-time quarterback, and he called it the Florida Frogs.
Florida Frogs.
And so what he would do is all the games magically would end in a tie. At the time, we never understood how that happened, but he made sure that it ended in a tie all the time. Yeah. And so that was a big thing that we had back there. The Florida Frogs is what he did. Kickball. Yeah, that was a big one back in the day, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
That just get one of those. What was like that red,
the bouncy,
red ball that had that weird texture to it. We did that a lot. It was an easy game to play.
No, it was. I mean, and again, it was just like a change of pace, from the everyday wiffle ball, because that wiffle ball was the mainstay.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
for everyone. You just had to change of pace with kickball.
Kickball, yeah, that was a good one. Again, that obviously is kind of like baseball, but you're just kicking it. People probably don't know. They might still play that. I have no idea. And then one of the things we did when we kind of got bored in the summer was Foursquare. Okay, I barely remember kind of doing that. How I don't even remember how you drew a chalk.
The 4 squares, and one ball, and there's certain rules. The person serves it into the next square. You got to have an easy serve, and you could do a double bounce or spinners and things of that nature. But you can't let the ball bounce twice in your square, otherwise you're out. Okay. Or if there's just 4 player, then you go back to the first square, and the whole idea is to make it to the server and stay there. Yeah. Which is almost kind of like a king of the hill. You're trying to knock that server out, and then you start back over.
Yeah. So that's I thought was another crazy one that we did. And another thing we did was we kind of made it up, but we had Frisbee, and we kind of played Frisbee golf, sort of. Yeah. Like you had a pinpoint, okay, that's the first one, we're going to throw it at that tree.
Exactly.
And then we're going to throw it at the garbage can. Right. And then that's what we had to do, and kind of basically like golf. But one that just made me think of it, I remember playing a little bit with Frisbee was, I think it was called Ultimate or something.
Yeah.
Where it was almost like football.
Exactly.
Something like football, but you threw it long distance,
right.
and you go out and you throw it to them, and that person would catch it and throw it to another person.
Use a frisbee instead of a football.
Yeah, that was one that I thought of. Obviously, back in the day was huge. It's not anymore. Was horseshoes.
Yeah. Well, then that kind of goes like earlier than us, older than us, however you want to say it. Our parents, our dads, were big into horseshoes.
Oh yeah.
Some yards would have a nice sand pit with the stake and everything. Yeah, that was a big one.
I mean, I remember doing it back at my house when I lived over in Eastgate, and we would have parties and everything. We actually made 2 horseshoe pits and had a big tournament and all that stuff. So that was a big thing. But this one was fun. Red Rover, I dare Steve to come over.
Yeah, you know what? I barely remember that. But I do remember.
Wasn't that where you hold arms together and then you had to try to bust through the arm?
Break through.
Break an arm. I mean, Red Rover. I mean, that was a good one. That was fun.
Well, so a lot of these games, Danny, is like the way you grew up and I grew up, a lot of kids in your neighborhood or in the next street, like you're saying. And it's the same thing for me. I mean, we had a ton of kids our age, Brittany Acres, and and you can do a lot of these games, because everyone would kind of come together.
Right.
And nowadays, you're lucky to get someone the same age, that lives within 3 or 4 houses.
So like you said, back then, the reason we could play a lot of these games because you had so many kids to play.
Right.
You can't really do these games now if you only have 2 or 3 guys or 4 guys.
Exactly.
Red Rover, you needed 5 and 5 on each side, or 6 and 6 on each side, or something like that, or even more. So that was
right.
And this one I'm going to bring up just because of my dad.
Okay.
Because of the big guy, Simon Says. My dad was the best at Simon Says, and he was obviously Simon, and he would get all the kids. Of course, it was later during the night. Big guy,
couple pops,
had couple pops.
So was this in the backyard, or where was
it was in the backyard, and he'd get all the kids and line them up.
How good did he get it?
Oh, he was awesome.
Is that right?
I mean, he kept saying, "I'd never get beat. You'll never beat me." Like that's how competitive big guy was too. But he always did the Simon Says, man, and he was good. I mean, he would even start off like, okay, we're gonna play Simon Says. He goes, all right, get over here. Well, you guys all just lost because everybody would, so like he already did it. So another one that was huge for me was flashlight tag.
Okay. Yes.
That was a big light, and if probably no one out there knows, is basically you play hide and seek. But if you get a flashlight and you flash it on them and you see them, then they're out. So it's kind of like hide and seek, basically, with a flashlight.
Exactly.
And then this one we talked about before we went on air, but I can't remember what it was called. So basically, it was you had someone that was in the middle, and you had like 10 people, and they go run, and they would try to get to a base. Like, let's say you had your front porch as a base.
Okay.
Everybody would run around, and they would try to get back to that base. They had, at some point get there.
Right.
That person had to catch it. So like if you were running and I saw you, I get you, and then it's me and you trying to get everybody else.
Yeah.
I can't remember what that game was called. Captured a flag.
That's what I was thinking.
I mean, I don't remember what it was called, but that was one that was a blast. I love doing that one. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then obviously this is a game that me and you did with Tom and all of our friends was volleyball, but it was mud volleyball.
Yeah.
I remember Tom's parents getting so pissed because we mud the field up, and the field, his backyard was a mess.
Yeah.
And we played all day, all night, so that was a good fun. Any kind of volleyball, really. This one was fun. Jarts. Remember Jarts?
Yeah, it's got to be like illegal now.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. So Jarts was basically it had a sharp
size dart.
Yeah, and basically had a circle, and kind of like horses, a cornhole. Yeah,
hula hoop.
And you had to try to throw yours, and if you got closest to the end, I remember playing that a lot. Yeah,
and you had to lay it down to measure to see.
Yeah, if it would make it in or not.
Yeah, but I mean, you think about that. Whether you're 10 years older or you're in your 20s or 30s, and you're drinking,
and you get hit in the head,
that could be dangerous.
Well, I've got a couple stories about that. Number one, big guy and all his friends did that one time, and they were playing, and it was late at night, and they couldn't find one of the jars, and the neighbor the next night said, "Hey, Tom, you want to get your jar that's on my roof?"
Oh,
so that was one. And then Tom and Boom are friends of ours. We went down to Tennessee, and we played long distance jarts.
Okay,
that was a lot of fun.
Oh,
very interesting.
Yeah, watch it incoming.
Yeah, scary.
Yeah,
and then of course water balloon toss. That was always a nice one.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the summertime,
depending on how much water's in there. And we would play sometimes and surprise them. We'd put like shaving cream in there as well.
That's good. That's a good one. And the other one I didn't really play that much is bocce ball or whatever that was called. I didn't play that much, but that was just some of the ones that I had off the top of my head. And I know there's a lot more that you got and other people out there probably that we're missing. So you go ahead.
Exactly.
Well, what do you got here on your list?
So I can remember one that was kind of baseball, and I think we just called it 500. Yeah. And so if you caught it on a fly, that was worth 100. If you caught it on one bounce, it was 50. If
yes.
It was do you remember that?
Oh my God, I do remember. That was the best.
Yeah. So what was Spud?
I don't remember.
There was a game called Spud, and I thought that was along those lines.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Remember Spud. All right, this one is kind of crazy. You talk about the water balloons and whether it just be family parties or birthday parties or whatever. But the one they don't do anymore, used to be super popular, is sack races.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Did you guys ever do that?
We did that, 4th of July. Did it all the time, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, 4th of July.
Or fall?
I fell all the time.
That's what I thought.
I didn't.
So one more recent that's been real popular is spike ball.
Yeah. Is that the one with the ball on kind of a trampoline or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can't let it hit the ground after the one team. All right, so I want to go back to, you talked about flashlight tag, just regular tag.
Yeah.
There was that, and all the different rules that you would make up for that. But then the other one, if you can remember, which kind of getting back to the base or whatever, was freeze tag.
Oh, yeah.
I
forgot about that.
Yeah. So if you got tagged, you were frozen, I think.
But I do remember that. Yeah, freeze tag. Yeah, I remember that.
Another, I don't even know this was a game. I mean, we made it into a game, basically, which is so funny because, the different era. Everybody had squirt guns. And we would play games, almost like hide and seek, but with squirt guns. If you got hit, so here's, 10, 15 kids running around a neighborhood
with guns.
Squirt guns.
Yeah. We did that too.
All right, here's one that I'm surprised you did not have, because I know you did this on a regular basis, was pickle.
You know what? I forgot that I wrote that down, and when you came up with 500, I thought of pickle, and I'm like, hopefully you mentioned that. That was huge. Pickle was the best. It was the best.
Oh,
it was the best.
Everybody was in on it. You couldn't wait for your turn to get in there.
Yeah, that was fun.
Did you like being in there or being the guys tossing the ball?
In there.
Yeah,
because I was fast. Elusive.
I'm going to have to see the film on that one.
Fast and elusive.
Okay, so how about this one? And I don't know if you were the leader of this or if you just participated, was red light, green light.
Yeah, I forgot about old red light, green light.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Dang, Steve.
We would do that where the person had their back to us, doing the red light, green light thing. And would say green light with their back to us, and then would turn around real quick and say red light, and you had to freeze basically. But we had to start on the swings.
Okay.
So he said when he said green light, we had to jump off the swings as we're swinging, and we're flying in the air. Yeah. The pipes of the swings are coming up out of the ground. So did you bring up Ghost in the Graveyard?
No, that's another one.
Yeah, that was a real popular one.
What was that one? Oh, that was it. 1 o'clock, the ghost is here. 2 o'clock, the ghost is here. 3 o'clock, the ghost is here.
Did you say that?
I think I remember that now. Yeah, I remember singing that.
You brought up bocce ball, I think it's called. What about croquet?
I played that, but not a lot.
Yeah.
But I do. But yeah, that was a good one too.
Just like a little, like almost like sledgehammers that were wood.
And with the little heavy
marble balls.
Yeah. And you had like a little, a little half a square or something like that.
Yeah, like staples that went, big staples that went in the ground. You had to hit them through.
I didn't play it that much, but yeah, I do remember a lot of people playing it.
Well, and we kind of talked about kick the can, right?
Yeah.
What about the giant size? I remember getting this for Christmas, and I thought it was the greatest thing. A giant size tic-tac-toe with bean bags.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
And it would flip.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it would flip. I do remember that.
Yeah.
And you would just toss it.
Almost like cornhole. Yeah. But, you toss a bean bag, and it could toss to nothing or an X or an O.
I remember that. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. And then you mentioned volleyball, but one with the, can I say birdie cocks?
Shuttlecocks.
That was badminton.
Yes.
We
did that.
Badminton was a big one.
That was a huge one.
Not even that long ago, because I know I did it with my kids. We would set it up at our house.
Yeah, I remember doing that too.
Yeah, and I don't think this was one, but I just brought this one up because I know your fan favorite was Duck Duck Goose.
Duck Duck Goose. That's a good one. I forgot all about Duck Duck Goose.
But that's all I had. And I'm sure there's a lot more, but everything on this list and your list, I promise you, we both played.
Oh, no doubt
growing up, and we could talk to a lot of kids that are 25 or younger and have probably played maybe 2 of these.
Yeah, they probably don't even know. But I wanted to give a couple more recent ones that obviously people are doing. Cornhole obviously is the biggest, huge. Everybody does it.
Can jam. That's where you put the frisbee into the plastic container.
That's another one. And I remember something with a bottle, and you take a frisbee and knock it off the stand or something like that. They got that one. But did you ever play washers?
Yes,
that's pretty fun. That was you needed you could be good at that one, but that was I want to tell you one thing that my dad. I don't know how they came up with it. Probably, obviously, just been drinking and having a good time. They played bottle cap baseball.
Okay, what's that mean?
So they had a broomstick, and that was their bat, and they would literally take bottle caps, and they would throw a bottle, and you had to hit a bottle cap.
What are we on the streets of New York in 1950?
They were out in the streets in a Clemson circle there, and that's what they did.
Wow, really?
Bottle cap baseball. And obviously, they'd have a lot of bottle caps because they were drinking a bunch of beer.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the rules were.
What was the beer of choice back then?
Everything, man. My dad, Hootie was Hootie and Hootie Delight and Bush and I know Mr. McManus drank Lowenbrow.
Lowenbrow, nice.
Drank all that. So
is that around anymore?
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, there was that neighborhood obviously said was the best, but I just remember thinking of games that we played when we were little. 4th of July, they would always have games for the kids, and they were running out of things to play. And at the time, there was a little bit of construction on our street, and somehow the pavement or whatever had a hole and it sank down a little bit. So big guy came up with the idea of you had to roll a ball into that hole. Like bowling almost.
Yeah.
So he did that one. So I forgot about that one. We did, remember they had the plastic pins of the bowling and you'd roll that and try to hit those down. I mean, that was when we were really little though.
Yeah. Dave Limestone had a long, skinny front porch. Yeah. And on rainy days,
you go out there.
We're doing bowling on the front porch.
I'm going to bring one up that's probably not a game like you said. It just made me think about it with rainy days. We played this game and it was so much fun. It was called baseball dice. And what we did is we sat down and we wrote down. So obviously, if you had 6 dice, right, you get 4 of them, and 6 times 4 is 24, right? So you'd write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you'd write all this down, right? Yeah. Or you write 4, whatever you have. So you roll it. 1 was a fly out. 2, 11 was a home run. 24 was a double fly out. Nice. And then what we would do is we'd pick teams. So it would kind of like have a draft. draft,
Yeah.
you would pick, or you'd say, I want to be the Los Angeles Dodgers. So you'd make the line of Steve Garvey, and then we would actually do like a book, and we'd play each other against each other on a rainy day. That's what we would do. And then we kept track. We kept like, it was almost like fantasy baseball back then.
Right.
And we did that. We also did that where we did a draft and we picked baseball players, and we had enough of those old helmets. Remember those old helmets, those plastic helmets that you buy at the Reds games?
Sure.
We had every single helmet from every single team, and then whoever you were, like if you picked that team, you had to wear that helmet.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, it's just crazy. So
who would play those games?
Oh, you'd have, Moose and John McManus, Kenny McManus, Terry McManus, Anthony Rahill played in our subdivision. Jimmy Serger played a couple times with us.
All right.
God, we had John Holmes played with us. He was in our neighborhood. Greg Rahill too. He was another one. The New Houses were there. I mean, we had so many kids in our neighborhood. It was just absolutely crazy. How many kids? Oh, the Hornschmeyers lived right by the McManuses, and they were a little bit younger. But it was just a great neighborhood.
Wow,
one of the best neighborhoods ever, man. That's why Summit always, gets it.
Well, it's come to learn that it's like a small city back in the 70s.
It's like a cult. It's like a cult. I mean, it's really cool to go back and recapture all of this. And, Steve and I obviously love doing this. And again, if you think of any games that we have not brought up that you would love to throw out there, please do, because we want to see if that's on our list, and just throw out some of your memories that you've had. And again, don't forget to like, subscribe on YouTube, and we're on Apple, Spotify, and all that. We really appreciate any comments or anything like that. So, but Steve, been a fun topic, man.
I know it brought back a lot of memories, and I'm going to be bummed if we're going to find out some ones that we forgot to mention.
There's no doubt we're gonna miss some. But so it's been a great episode. So we really appreciate it. Well, again, next week we'll have a new topic. We're still debating what we're going to do, but we'll throw that out to everybody, and then we'll blast it out here. So again, we're going to wrap it up. So for Dan Albers, I am Dingo Dan Albers, and that is the Coach Steve Ellis. Thanks for watching Dingo the Coach. We'll catch you next week.